Here I'm standing on the porch of the doctor's office. The cabin itself was a two-room cabin which we used and demonstrated as a doctor's office. It was about 2 miles southeast of here. Moved in 1997 and donated by Bill Parker of Lincolnton, North Carolina. On the front wall you'll see here a sign, an actual 1800 sign, Dr. P.W. Hart. Remember, I'm R.W. How easy was it to change the gold stenciling from a P to an R? So now the sign is Dr. Robert W. Hart, R.W. Hart. Inside you'll see several letters that actually came from the same Dr. Hart from Knoxville, Tennessee. An antique dealer, Fred Hawkins, was picking in Knoxville and saw these signs and he knew I would buy them, so he had them here immediately after he purchased them and gave me first offer to buy the signs and the letters. And typically you'll see my corner cupboard, which are over 30 here in the village today. It's kind of an obsession, as my wife says, collecting corner cupboards. In fact, one corner cupboard just a year ago that I purchased took me almost 3 to 4 days to find a corner to put it in. Now step inside and you can see a lot of the utensils and tools that we used in the 1800s. Some of them are frankly scary. The peg legs, the bone saws for sawing off arms and legs, the bullet that you had to bite, the liquor bottle that you drank real heavily prior to surgery before anesthesia. Anyway, come in and we'll have several real doctors today demonstrating as old doctors in the 1800s.
I'm Dr. Richard Griffin, and I helped Dr. Hart with his demonstration of medical office, probably the 1800s. And so what we're going to do today is to look at some of the instruments that they used in the 1800s. I think when a patient comes in and is sick, several things are pretty common to start the treatment, especially when you don't know what's the matter, which is often. The doctor's office treated everything. He treated teeth, kidneys, lungs, heart, extremities, whatever is wrong. They say we come here. Now, we'll talk a little bit about teeth. If you have a painful tooth, this tooth extractor is probably 1800s. And it works very simply, and I don't know why they don't still use it today, but you just catch it on the tooth and twist it, and the tooth comes right out. See how simple that is. Now, we've gotten a lot more modern and fancy, and so we have these things that look like pliers. And they haven't changed a lot since they were brought on board. Sometimes you need to cut a limb off, an arm or leg, something like that. And this is a multi-use knife. It's sharp on one side, and you can cut through the skin and the muscle and stuff like that. Then you twist it over to the other side, and it's got sawtooth on it to go through the bone. And then back to the sharp side to finish the job. So that's how I would take off a limb in this office if I had to. And occasionally when you get a brain injury, there's blood underneath the skull, and you need to get it out. Well, this is a trephine, and so you use this trephine. First you kind of cut the scalp and get down to the bone, and then you use the trephine going back and forth, and it saws a nice clean hole through the skull. So you can take that plug out, and there's all that blood, and you can drain the blood. And then you put the plug back in. And the patient mostly always survives. So, let's see here what else we have. Occasionally if the patient is not doing well and you don't know what to do, you bleed them. You know, the idea is they've got too much blood, or the blood's bad. You need to get rid of it. So, there are several ways of doing this. This is a bleeding cup, and they'll have little lines on the inside, so you know if you bled them for 100 cc's or 200 or 300, you know how much you bled them. You can measure it as you go. And so the several ways you can bleed. This is a little instrument that will very quickly, it's on a spring, if it's working right. Anyway, and you trip the spring and it goes so fast you can't see it down into a vein and makes a hole in it. And the patient, it's so fast the patient can't jerk away. And then you collect the blood into your container until you get all you feel like you need, and then you stop. And if the patient gets well, that's fine. You pat yourself on the back that you treated this patient well. And so he comes back the next day and he's not any better, well, you bleed him again. And that goes on until he gets better or quits coming back. Yeah, so whichever. This is one more item. This is actually a hearing tube. You put it in this ear and speak into that so Granny can hear what you're saying. It would also function as a stethoscope. You could put it this way and listen to the heart.
My name's Jim Parker. I'm a pathologist. I'm a volunteer at Heart Festival manning the doctor's office. And this is another area of the doctor's office from the early to mid 1800s, and some of this material is later than that. I think first of the things we'll talk about is laboratory medicine was getting its infancy and getting started. And here on the table is a one eyepiece microscope, and the other array around here of funnels and so forth might remind you of a child's chemistry set, but it was used in all seriousness. Most of these were made of brass. There was a place to put a slide on the stage, and the light that went through the microscope was coming from a source of a candle usually, and reflected in a mirror up through the scope so you could see what was on the slide. And what they were looking at mostly were urine samples and later on blood samples and even some stool samples to see what they could learn. And that was later in the 1800s. Up on this shelf there are a number of chemicals that were used to stain things, to mix with acids and bases and look for reactions. In that era, there was a good understanding of gross anatomy, but a very limited understanding of how things work, the physiology and biochemistry of our tissues and organs. So the chemical reactions they were using were very limited as to their information produced. But they used those. And then in the doctor's office of that era, they provided the corner drugstore as well. And over here on this table, we'll have some examples of the tools of that function. Here is a set of weights and a set of scales, balances really, to demonstrate that they were attempting to standardize what they were sending out to be used as medication. Into the table here, this is a mortar and pestle, familiar probably to most of you as an item seen in the kitchen nowadays to grind spices and things of that sort. But in those days, the basics of the pharmaceutical item being used were ground up with liquid added to it to make a paste. And that paste had to be turned into pill form, one, to standardize the dose, and two, make it easy to take. So they would roll the paste out into a roll, place it on the pill roller, which is this instrument here with these ridges, and then move the mechanism over the surface, and it would cut the roll of paste into pills. And let them dry, and you could package them up and send them out to patients. A lot of the containers that era were made of wood instead of our today's plastics or glass. And the doctor usually had various catalogs to refer to from where he could order his raw materials, and also kept books handy to look up symptoms and things of that sort. Many of the items back here on this shelf are used for pharmacology too, many tinctures and heavy use of opiates. And most of the tonics prepared, the active ingredient was alcohol. And his symptomatology was what you treated. If you had constipation, they had laxatives. If you had diarrhea, they had drugs to slow the bowel down, things of that sort. They had various powders and salves they prepared to put on open wounds and sores. And I think that's just a brief synopsis of introduction into the laboratory side of what they were able to do. We're here today demonstrating a limited amount of material that's here to see, and hope you'll come out and check it out for yourself.